Hi, software applications for business students. Today we're jumping into week 8. Week 8 is already halfway through the trimester. Can you believe that? It's going so fast. I'd like to thank you all for the communication, and I do appreciate from hearing from so many of you how much you're learning through this course. Today takes us into the second week of spreadsheet applications, and what I'd like to do is take you through the competencies for week 8. I've got them listed on the screen here. So we're going to get into a little bit more advanced functionality in a spreadsheet. You can see the competencies. We're going to take a look at entering formulas using the keyboard and also the insert function key. We're going to differentiate between using relative references and absolute cell references when you copy or move a formula or function. This concept is very difficult for a lot of beginning level students to understand when using a spreadsheet. We'll take a look at other functions such as maximum, minimum, average. We'll add a date to a cell. We'll enter a date into a cell and then format a date. We'll take a look at conditional formatting, which is a little bit different than absolute formatting, which is what you've been using. We will change column width and row heights, check spelling, margins, and also take a look at print preview. Of course, I won't make you print anything in the spreadsheet because you submit your assignments to the assignments submission folder in Blackboard, but we'll take a look if you do have to print. So I'm going to shift over in Excel, and certainly what I'd like you to do is follow along with this video. Know that you can stop and pause the video at any time. You can reverse and you can take a look at something all over again, but I would like you to work along with me because I do want you to submit your final file to the submission folder in week 8. I am going to enter, again, you learned this from last week, 4 key components in a spreadsheet would be the title. Typically, the title goes into cell A1, which is considered the home cell. So the name of the company we're working with today is a company called Worldwide Sporting Goods. I'm going to hit the enter key, and when you hit the enter key, it takes you down the next cell in the column. So cell A2 is active. So in cell A2, the second component that you learned about last week is the subtitle. So we're going to type in the name of the report, which is sales report, and then we will hit enter and then enter again. Because in cell A4 will be our first column heading. So again, the third and the fourth components in a very well organized structured spreadsheet is a column heading and a row heading. So I'm going to go ahead and type those in there. Again, follow along with me. And you can pause again at any time. So as you can see, I entered the first column label, sales reps, and this company has 4 sales reps working for them. You can see Smith with the beginning initial S, Brown with the beginning initial H, and so on. So go ahead, you can pause this and you can type that in there. Below Adams, we're going to enter totals, and then below totals, we'll enter maximum and minimum row headings. Once you're finished with the row headings, we will shift into our column headings. Now with our column headings, this is going to be a quarterly report. So our column headings next to sales reps in cell B4, we're going to type in the first month of the quarter, which is January. We're going to abbreviate it and type in JAN for January and enter that in there. Okay, the first quarter has got 3 months, January, February, and March. So I am going to select January. And instead of typing in February and March in the first 3, you learned about this feature in the last videos, but this is called the fill handle. It's the little square knob in the lower right corner. If you position your mouse on it, your mouse turns into a thin black crosshair. And I'm just going to drag that across the other 2 columns so you see it automatically, you use the fill handle. This feature is called autofill. It fills in with the appropriate labels. So this is the 3 months in the first quarter. The next column heading in cell E4, we're going to type in total sales, because what we're going to do is we're going to total the sales for the quarter. Once we get into total sales, in the next column heading, and again, you can actually hit the arrow to the right, or you can hit the tab key, and that will take you to the next cell to the right. We're going to type in expenses, and then either tab or the arrow right key we're going to type in net profit, either tab or the right key, and then we're going to type in average sales. I'm going to abbreviate that ABGSALES, and then the right key. And then I'm going to skip a column, and in J4, we're going to type in commissions because we're going to calculate each sales rep's commissions. Again, you can pause at any time, and you can get that get that filled in. Okay, once again, this was mentioned last week, but text entries are aligned or butted to the left side of the cell. What we're going to do is we're going to enter the sales numbers for each of the sales reps for the month of January, February, and March, and then we're going to also enter the expenses for each of the sales reps in column F. Starting with Smith, we are going to enter the number 1819.33. Now, with numbers, you can type in the formatting. If you want a 2-digit decimal, 0.33, you can type in commas where appropriate. But with a number entry, you want it to be raw numbers. By the way, you can include negative numbers in a cell by containing them in parentheses or typing a minus symbol in front of them. Now, these are all sales reps, so hopefully all their sales numbers are positive, or they probably won't be with this company for too long. Okay, the next sales rep for Brown, Brown's numbers are 1704.32. Wallace's 2009.9. Adams is 1958.33. Okay, so you can see if you take a look at Wallace's, because we had a 90 and it drops off the 0 and you see a single digit decimal. We'll fix that later. Okay, so you can go ahead. We're going to shift over to February and enter Smith's numbers for February. So it's 1766.55. Brown is 1809.2. Next is Wallace, and his is 2195.66. And then Adams for February, 1725.55. And then we'll go back up to March for Smith, and that is 1942.23. And then for Brown, it's 1651.1. The next one is Wallace, 2164.44. And then finally, the last sales number for Adams is 1971.33. So we've got that in there. Now, total sales will be a function. We're going to use the sum function, but differently than we used it last week. So we're going to just enter. The only other numbers we need to know are their expenses. So for Smith, in cell F6, we're going to enter the expense of 1241.01. And for Brown, it is 1660.55. And then for Wallace, it is, 1246.06. And then for Adams, it is 1346.55. So we've got their sales and their expenses in those cells. Again, you can pause at any point until you get caught up to where we are at. So last week, you learned how to sum. Sum means total. Using the auto sum button in your home ribbon in the very last group, the editing group. So for this first, we're going to select cell E5, and the first way we're going to sum is a review, same way we did it last week. We're going to click on the auto sum. Excel is so intelligent that it analyzes the spreadsheet. It knows that there are no numbers above the cell, so it looks to the left. You see the blinking marquee, and it is telling you that it's thinking that you want to sum the 3 cells to the left, which is what we want. Notice how it populates the equals and the sum and also the range there. We're going to choose enter to accept that. So we've summed Smith's sales right there. Now the next way we're going to sum, and sum is add, there's another way to do it. All formulas and functions begin with the equals key. And as a matter of fact, if you take a look at the manual, the PDF manual that I have uploaded to Blackboard, on page, I'm just flipping through the pages here, Page 80, there's a table, and on that table, it shows you formula operators. But with regard to functions and the functions that we're going to get to, if you take a look at the book, you will see that there is another table on page 84. Okay, so functions like formulas begin with equals. We're going to hit the equals key. And if you just simply type in the name of the function, sum starts with S, so I'm going to type in SU. And you can see it brings a pop-up list here. And in that list, what we want is the sum function. What we do is double click there, and you can see the sum function there. So it selects the sum function, and parentheses are around the range. I'm going to grab the range I'm trying to sum, which in this case is B6 through D6. I'm going to hit enter, and it sums those numbers there. So that's the second method of summing. Third method, and again, we'll take a look at each method, is using the insert function. So on the formula bar, you'll see this key, this button that says FX. When you point to it, you'll see the tooltip is insert function. Now this is a great way to add a function or to insert a function and also to search functions. So I'm going to click on that FX key, and it opens up the insert function dialog box. Now this dialog box, you can see there are 3 boxes within it. The first box is this. You can search for a function. So if you type in something like add, I'm trying to add. The terminology doesn't have to be exact. I choose go. It found SUMIF, sum. So we're going to use sum. And then we're going to choose OK. It opens up what is called the formula palette. And it's wondering in this number 1 box, what cells are you trying to sum? So I'm going to click this little red, white, and blue collapse box here. It collapses the dialog box temporarily. And again, I'm going to grab the range of cells that I'm trying to sum. In this case, it's B7 through D7. I'm going to click now. This is the expand. It'll expand it back. Notice it shows you the answer before you're even done. You choose OK. So those are the 3 different ways that you can actually sum pretty easily. So go ahead, select E8, and you go ahead and you decide which way you want to sum E8. You can use AutoSum, you can type in equal sum, you can use the insert function. We'll review those once again. I'm going to use AutoSum. Now if you take a look, it's looking up, it's guessing incorrectly. We're trying to sum atom sales. So I'm going to highlight the cells that we're trying to sum, and I'm going to hit enter right there, and you see the total. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with average sales. I'm going to skip net profit because I'm going to talk about formulas a little bit later. But in this average sales column, I'm going to click on cell H5. Now what we want to do is we want to average Smith sales for the first quarter, which is January, February, and March. Again, there are 3 methods of doing it. Now, if you take a look at, again, the editing group in your home ribbon, AutoSum, if you look at it very closely, is a 2-part button. I don't want to sum, so what I want to do is I want to click on the drop-down arrow, and it unfolds your commonly used functions. The first function, or what we're doing here, is averaging, so you can see average in the list right below sum. I'm going to click on that. And notice if you look at the blinking marquee here, it's thinking that you're trying to average everything. Not only January, February, and March, but also totals and expenses. So what I want to do once again is just highlight the cells I'm trying to average. In this case, it's Smith sales for the months of January, February, and March. It would be the range B5, C5, and D5. I'm going to enter that there. So you can see Smith's average sales is, you can see that there. Now again, don't worry about the decimals because we're going to format this, once we're finished. Generally speaking, it's best to add the content before you focus on the formatting in a spreadsheet. In a spreadsheet, it's the analysis, it's the content that's most important. The formatting should come second. So that was the first way to average, is we use the AutoSum drop-down arrow. Now the second way is by manually typing it in there. So I'm going to type in equals, and I'm going to begin typing the word average because I'm trying to average. And as I type, once again, it pops up a list. There's average. I'm going to double click on it. And once again, I have to tell Excel what range of cells I'm trying to average. So in this case, it's cell B6 through D6. I've got that highlighted. I can glance over here, and then I'm going to just hit enter. When you hit enter, it does add the final parenthesis around the range. And so that's the second way, once again, of performing a function, is by manually typing it in there. Now the third way is, again, using the insert function. So I'm going to go to insert function. Once again, I can type in, if I'm looking for a function, I can type in a keyword. There's also categories here. I'm going to stick to typing in a keyword, so I'm trying to average. And this is where I go when I search for functions in Excel. You were looking at a few today, but there are so many. And you see average comes right up. So I'm going to double click on that. And once again, it opens up what is called the formula palette. And in the formula palette, it's wanting to know what range you're trying to average. I'm going to click the red, white, and blue collapse box. I'm going to select the range that I'm trying to average. In this case, it's Wallace. So it's B7, C7, and D7. I'm going to expand. You can see the answer already, and I'm going to enter that in there. So again, in cell H8, go ahead and average cell H8 however you want to practice averaging. Again, simple functions. I'm going to hit the little drop down arrow here. I'm going to select average. It's looking up. It's guessing wrong. We're trying to average atoms for January, February, and March, and enter that. So at this point in time, you may want to compare your spreadsheets with the spreadsheet you see in this video, just to make sure that you did it right. If not, pause it and practice until you get it right. So we've got a couple other functions to take a look at, the maximum and the minimum. So if you take a look and you select cell B11, we want to take a look at all of our sales for all of our sales reps in the first quarter, and we want to find the maximum, or what that means is the highest number. So what was our highest number? Who was our top producer? Highest number, the highest number in the range. So once again, you can find maximum any of the three ways that we've just discussed. I like to go up to AutoSum, click the drop down arrow, and you're going to see your most commonly used simple functions here in this area. Max is the command for maximum. So you could type in equals max, or you can use your insert function to search, and you should find it. I'm going to click on max, and notice how it's looking at the numbers above it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to search from cell B5 through D8. So out of all those numbers in all those months, we're asking Excel to produce the highest number. I'm going to hit enter, and you can see out of all those numbers, the highest number is 2,195.66. Okay, likewise, minimum. Now, I'm going to do it a little bit different. You can see I could go, minimum is right under maximum here. I could type in equals MIN, and you see minimum here, okay? The third way is to go to insert function. And again, I might not even have the right terminology, but if I type in minimum, because it's MIN is the command, it's still going to find minimum. Okay, once again, in the formula palette, it's asking me what range is it that I'm looking through. So I'm going to click the collapse box. I'm going to select the same range. It would be from B5 to D8. I'm going to hit the red, white, and blue little expand button, and then OK. So the lowest number is 1651.10. I'm going to go down here and I want a total. So I want to take January's total. So go ahead, you can do that. Again, I'm going to do it 3 different ways just to review. It's a sum, so I can hit auto sum. That's right. Okay, now before you take one cell at a time, I'm going to have you click on cell B9, and I just want to show you a simple way to copy. I think that this is a little bit of a review from last week, But that little fill handle that we use to fill the labels, you can also, you can actually copy. So when you're copying formulas and functions, Excel recognizes it isn't a label. So if it isn't a label, you can use the fill handle, which is the little square knob in the lower right corner, to actually copy. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that all the way across, because not to averages, but right to net profit. There's nothing in net profit yet, but you can see that. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but if you examine, you copied the cell all the way across. By default, when you copy a cell, Excel has got what is called relative reference. So let's examine relative reference for a second. Okay, this is the cell we copied. If you look up here in the formula bar, you can see the sum is the range B5 to B8. Now we copied that over one cell. Notice how the cell reference has changed. Okay, we just copied it over. Excel is intelligent enough that it knows if you take a sum function and you copy it, you want the range to change. So if you see here now in C9, if you look inside the parentheses, relative reference is such that it adjusts the reference cells so you have the right formulas in the right place. So before I move to the next cell, if you take a look at cell C9, the formula bar, you can see inside the parentheses, it's adding C5 through C8. What do you think it is in the next cell? D9. Okay, let's click on it, and if you guessed D5 through D8, you're right. Again, relative reference will do that. Excel works that way right out of the box. It is always reference. So whenever you hear the term relative reference, it means when you copy or you move a cell, the cell references in that formula will automatically adjust to the new location. If you take a look at E9, it's E5 through E8. F9 is F5 through F8, and so forth. Okay? So we'll talk about that's how it works. We'll talk about the opposite of that, which is absolute cell reference, in just a second. Okay, we've got a formula and we need to input here net profit. So in cell G5, what we want to know is each sales rep's net profit. So net profit, in order to calculate that, you want to take total sales minus expenses. So in essence, this is going to be a simple subtraction formula. Formulas begin with equals. So when I tap my equals key on my keyboard, Excel is thinking, okay, here comes a formula. Okay, so to calculate net profit, we want to take Smith's total sales, which is in what cell? If you're thinking it's E5, you're right. Now I can either click on E5 or I can type in E5, whatever you prefer. I prefer on a full-size keyboard my numeric keypad when I'm working with numbers and formulas. So I'm going to type in minus because that subtracts. And we want to subtract expenses. Now, what cell is Smith's expenses in? If you're thinking F5, you're right. So I'm going to click, or you can type in F5 and you enter, and Smith's net profitability is $42.8710. Okay, now I could copy that down. Again, let's examine relative reference. So in G5, if you look up here at the formula, we've got E5 minus F5. Okay, now another way to copy besides the fill handle, in real life I'd use the fill handle, is if you're a right clicker, you can copy and paste. Also on the home ribbon, you can copy and paste. So I can go copy, and it's copying that. I'm going to select the 3 cells directly below it, and I'm going to paste. Again, if you're a right clicker, you can copy and paste that way as well. Now the blinking marquee continues to blink, and I know it annoys a lot of people. So to stop it from blinking, you can just hit your escape key on your keyboard and it disappears. Okay, let's examine relative reference once again. So if you select cell G5, you've got the E5 minus F5. If you go down one cell, E6 to F6, you see relative reference? The references change relative to where you're pasting the data. Okay, go down one more, E7 to F7. You're not doing that. Excel does that automatically. That is what is referred to as relative reference. Okay, So next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump over and we're going to calculate commissions. Now each sales rep earns a 5% commission on their total sales. So what we're going to do up here in J1, we're going to type in commission rate, enter. Okay, and we will go in L1 and we will type in, now 5%, you could type in 0.05 if you grew up with math like I did. I convert to a decimal. 0.05 is 5%. Or you can type in 5 with a percentage symbol, and that is like 0.05. Excel reads both the same way. When you type in a number with a percentage, it converts it. It's really 0.05. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to cell J5, and we're going to multiply the commission rate by each of the sales reps' total sales. So in essence, in this case, we're going to take Smith's total sales, which is in what cell? E5. If you guessed E5, you're right. So we're going to take E5 times the commission rate in L1. Okay, formulas always begin with what? Equals. And we're going to type in, you can either type in E5 or click on E5. And we're going to multiply. So you want to type in the asterisk key. The asterisk key is the multiplication key. And then we're going to type in L1, just like you would. I want you to go ahead and do that and enter that. Now I'm setting you up to fail, but I want to teach you something by that. We'll come back and we'll adjust this. So that's great. That's logical. Smith, if Smith earns 5% commission, Smith's commission is going to be $276.41. Now, if we go ahead and we copy that all the way down to our other 3 sales reps, you take a look at that, there's a problem. We've got something going on. Something isn't working right. So let's examine this. The formula that we set up in J5, it's E5 times L1. That's great, but why didn't it work down here? Because they all made money. I mean, the sales are positive. So if we take a look at J6, if you take a look at relative reference, E6 is right. Now watch when I double click, this is called the rangefinder. It color codes that. It's taking E6, which is right, but because L1 is relative, we discussed relative, it moves it down 1 cell, so it's taking E6 times L2. We want to take E6 times L1 because that's the cell that the rate's in. Okay, hopefully you're kind of seeing where we're going with this. Let's just take a look at one more so the light bulbs really go on. Let's take a look at the next cell, Wallace. Okay, so if you take a look at Wallace, E7, that's Wallace's total sale. But you see, because of relative reference, we copied it down 1. E2 goes into E3. So basically a blank cell is 0. So 0 times a number is going to yield the value of 0. So this is an example where you want a cell reference not to be relative. You want the cell reference to be absolute. So here's how you do it. We're going to go back. Actually, let's select all this and delete it and start all over again. Okay, so once again, formulas begin with equals. We're going to take Smith's total sales. We're going to multiply by L1. Now, before you hit enter, what you want to do to make a cell reference absolute, you want to make sure your cursor's blinking over on the L1 side of the equation. You can hit your F4 key on the keyboard. Your function keys, F4, or you can manually type dollar symbols in those, okay? This is a absolute cell reference. What the dollar symbols do is it anchors the row reference here and the column reference. So the column reference is L, so the dollar symbol L will isolate it, the L, and the dollar symbol before the 1, row 1, will isolate row 1. So when you copy that down, L1 will stay L1, which is why they call it absolute cell reference. So once I have that, again, you can hit the F4 key or you can manually type in those dollar symbols. It works the same way. We're going to hit enter. Now watch what happens. I'm going to select this. I'm going to grab the fill handle and drag it down. And there you go. So if you take a look at this, E5 times L4, or I'm sorry, times L1. You can see the absolute reference by the dollar symbols. Let's take a look at now J6. The E5 turns into E6, but you see how the L1 stays L1 all the way down? That's what an absolute cell reference is. It doesn't change when you copy the formula or you move the formula. It will not change. So the dollar symbols anchor. Please email me if you do have any questions on absolute cell references. Also, in the PDF training manual that I have updated in Blackboard, there's some additional information about absolute cell references. Okay. We need to include a date. So what we're going to do is select G1 and we're going to type in date. And in cell H1, we're going to include the date that we are, today's date. So whatever day it is that you're looking at this video, I'm going to type in 10/20/2015. You can go ahead and type that in there that way. Okay. So I had you type it in that way. But you can format the date. You typed it in that way. There are many different types of date formats. I know this is getting into date formatting just a little bit, and we are going to move into formatting now. So if you have cell H1 selected, again, on your home ribbon, you can see in the box here, Excel does recognize it as a date, but there are many other date options. If you click on the little square arrow, it's called the dialog box launcher. So when you click on it, it opens up the format cells dialog box. By the way, you can get there by right-clicking as well. And if you click on the date category, you can take a look at the right-hand side, and you can see that there are many other optional date formats. So just to be a little bit different, let's say we want a 2-digit year. 3/14/12 would be a 2-digit year. You can choose OK, and it changes that date format. So that is how you can actually apply a date to a cell or a range. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's do a little formatting now. So what we will do is, you learn this a little bit in the first week. We're going to select from cell A1 through F1. In our home ribbon, we're going to merge and center. We're going to select A2 through F2. We'll merge and center that as well. Okay, let's select A1, and in our styles group, let's change the cell style to a title style. And you can change the color to any color you want. I actually prefer darker colors. If you wanted to change the font, you could do that as well. It's Calibri Light. I might want to change it to Arial. I'm going to select cell A2. I'm going to click on the same color, but cell style, I may want to go for a heading 3. The other thing that you can do would be, you could add a border around it, but we're actually going to take a look at that in week 3. Okay, we're going to select our column labels going all the way across. Again, cell style wise, I might want to use the heading 3 style here. I will go down to A5 through all the way down through A12, and I may want to change that style to a heading 4 style. So again, you can kind of play around with those styles. I am going to keep the data in column A left aligned, but I might need to widen out that column. Okay, you learned in last week, you can double click, and that between the 2 columns on the line, and that's called auto fit. You can also position your mouse on that line, press and hold. You'll see the width at 9.57. You can manually drag that right or left. Let's try to get that as close to a 10 as possible. So you see when you drag, as close to a 10 as possible. Okay, we also want to expand our row height. So you see Smith. And if you take a look at the row area, if you position your mouse between 5 and 6, your mouse is a 2-sided arrow. If you press and hold, you can see the row height is 15. Let's make it a little bit taller, so it's about an let's see, 18.75. So you kind of have a little bit of a space in that as well. Okay. Let's select the total row. The total row, I'm going to choose B9 all the way across. We forgot to total commissions. We'll do that in a second. And under cell styles, we're going to go with the total row style. And you can see that there. We're going to widen out our columns because you can see commission is a little bit spans over into column K. So I'm going to select, and you can select columns, multiple columns. So I'm going to select B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through J. And I'm going to press my mouse down over on the right-hand side, and I'm going to expand that so they're about 11. So it widens that out nicely there. It's making it a little bit easier to read. Okay, let's grab the numbers. So from B5 all the way through, let's go commissions, J8, we're going to apply the comma style. Now the comma style will round everything. It won't really round, but it'll change the formatting. So they're all a 2-digit decimal. It applies commas where appropriate, and you do not see the currency symbol with that. Okay. With the total row, though, we'll select that. We'll actually sum our commission here in just a second. We will use the accounting style for that. So it's a fixed dollar symbol over on the left-hand side. Excel will apply commas where appropriate and rounds to a 2-digit decimal. If you want to select cell J9 and input a sum function there, go for it. And you'll see that there. So that's the total commissions. Okay, to the maximum and minimum, we will apply, once again, the accounting style there as well. So we're getting there. For date and in our dates there, let's apply italic, and you can go ahead and apply any color you want to there. Commission rate, same thing. We can apply italic. We might want to highlight our cells. We may want to fill them in, so we can use in the font group our fill. We'll choose the drop down arrow. You want to be careful. You want light against dark. You want them to contrast. If I go dark and dark, you see how hard that is to read. So you generally want to go light on dark or light on dark or dark on light. So we'll go ahead. We'll do that there. Okay. So that jumps out there. Very good. So last couple things that we want to take a look at competency-wise is we would like to apply conditional formatting. So conditional formatting is a little bit different than absolute formatting. What we've just done here is absolute formatting. Okay, conditional formatting will basically change the appearance of a cell when it matches a condition or a criteria. So if we take a look at total sales, let's grab the total sales cells. So select the range from E5 through E8. And what we're going to do here is any cells that are greater than $5,600, we want to format in yellow with green text, okay? So the conditional formatting is also found in your styles group, here next to numbers. If you click on conditional format, there's some built-in rules, like you can highlight certain cells that match a certain condition. You can take a look at your top or your bottom percentages or items. There's data bars, color scales. We're going to highlight certain cells that are greater than, so we're going to click greater than, and we're going to type in $5,600. So we want to format cells that are greater than a certain value. We're going to say $5,600, and then you can control how you want it to look. Light red fill with dark red text is the default. Take a look at that. It already found the 2 cells that match that condition. Okay, you can also choose the drop down arrow, and you can pick any number of these, but we want to customize it. because we want yellow with green. There is just green and green. So if you customize the format, it opens up the font group. Okay, what we want to do on the font group is we want to change the color. Pick a dark green, any dark green you want. And then we won't add a border, but we'll go to the fill and we'll go with gold. So it's green and gold. I think you Packer fans will get this. We'll choose OK and then OK. So you see the cells that match that condition will highlight as such. Now just to show you, you see these other two don't match. So let's go to Smith and let's increase the sales. And you're going to see when you increase the sales, it's going to increase Smith's total sales. So you're going to see it matches the condition. So if I change, let's change B5 and let's type in an even $2,000. So that increases Smith's total, and you see it matches the condition, so now it's going to highlight it. Okay, let's go back and let's type in 1864.22, and you see now it doesn't meet that condition. So conditional formatting, what that means is you can control a cell looking a certain way when it matches a certain condition. So this is a great way if you're, watching a range of numbers, they can jump out at you if you want it to. I was just noticing something as I was going to do this, what we can do too, and it's completely up to you. But let's select our column labels and, let's apply a light colored shading to the column labels. Pick any light colored shading you like. You might even want to place a light text in a dark background, but you can kind of play around with that a little bit. You might want to apply the same to the total row. Notice, when you use your shading icons, the characteristic of the button takes on that. So we're going to go ahead, click on that, and then we'll deselect. Checking spelling is easy enough. I've added the spell checker to my quick access toolbar, so I can go here. If you click the drop down arrow, you check spelling, it adds it, so it's going to check spelling for the whole spreadsheet. Okay. If you don't add it to your quick access toolbar, you find it under the review ribbon. So you have to go to a new ribbon, and if you take a look, the first button there, it's a spell checker. So it checks all the data and just like spell checking in Word, it checks all the data in the cells for spelling. If it found a spelling error, it'll stop there. I know what I was going to do here. Let's select our column labels all the way across, and let's click on center align because we want to center align those column labels. I might even want the same kind of a shading in my title and my subtitle. Okay, two things left. The first thing is margins. So if I go into the page layout ribbon, I can change margins, I can change orientation, I can change paper size. So if you go into margins, you can see the margins right here. I set it normal. You can make margins wide, so it's all 1-inch margins. Notice when I change my margins to wide, I see this dotted line going. That's a page break, so it's going to cut this off. So maybe I want wider margins. I'm actually going to go back to margins, and I'm going to go back to normal. Okay, it's still going to cut this off. So a lot of times spreadsheets, you can, it's sometimes better to change the orientation of the spreadsheet. So if you go to orientation, by default, it's portrait. So the 8.5 by 11 is 11 tall by 8.5 wide. A lot of times with spreadsheets, you want to avoid cutting off columns. So it's a good idea to make them landscape. Now making them landscape, you can see that I'm going to cut off my rate here. So I can do a couple of different things. I can narrow this column down a little bit, but also I might change my margins. So I could change my margins back to narrow, and you can see how it's going to fit on a single page here. Okay. I'm going to go up and undo that. By the way, there's no limitations to how many times you can undo in this version of Excel. I want to show you something else. I want to show you scaling. You can do that here. So once again, if you click on the dialog box launcher here and you want to scale it back, you see how I'm going to cut off one column? I'm going to, well, scaling is right here as well, scale to fit. but I like to go to the page setup dialog box launcher, and I can go to scaling and I can say, hey, adjust to fit 1 page wide by 1 page tall. If I choose OK, that's another way that it actually shrinks it to fit on one sheet of paper. Big important takeaway though is orientation with Excel and margins. So if I preview, I go up to File and I click on Print. This is your Backstage view. You can see that I've got it all scaled and it's going to fit on a single sheet of paper. If I was going to print this in color, remember when you use color, you won't see color unless you print it on color paper. The last thing would be headers in page layout. So we're in normal view most of the time. There are 3 little itty bitty icons in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Normal view is the view you're in most of the time. If you take a look at page layout view, you can see headers and you can see footers. Now what headers and footers are, whatever you add into the header or footer area, it will repeat itself on every page. So what I am going to do is I'm going to click on the header area and I am going to type in first quarter sales 2015. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to have you type in your name with a hyphen and your CFO of this company. Congratulations. In the footer area, I'm going to go down to the bottom in the footer area and I'm going to click in the center of the footer area. Notice this design contextual ribbon that appears when you're in the header or the footer area. I'm going to click on that and I want to insert the page number. Click away out of that. I want to click away. Now you see the page number. I'm going to click on the normal view button and you can see we're back to our spreadsheet. So that is the end of video for all the competencies in week number 2. Once you finish the spreadsheet, you can go ahead and submit it and you will have another practice spreadsheet to work on. So please contact me if you have any questions. I would suggest that you actually rename your sheet to something meaningful. You learned that last week and in the first week. I'm going to double click or you can right click, you can rename it. And I'm going to call this first quarter sales and then enter. Have a good week.